I roar like thunder, my heart's aflame. Truth my armor, you'll know my name. Through the shadows, I stake my claim. This lion's pride will never be tame. I stand my ground, I hold the light. Words like arrows in the night. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. They throw their stones, but I don't fall. Their whispers crumble against my call. I see the doubt, but I see it all. A mountain stands where they see a wall. Claws in the sand, eyes to the sky. Every word a battle cry. Strength and faith I can't deny. This lion lives and lions don't die. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. The fire of the restoration burns with holy strength from the Savior's arm. Standing tall in the light, called now for the fight. The lions of Judah and Ephraim unite. I'm the latter-day lion. With power I'm trying to fight the lies with fire inside. Latter-day lion, I keep on climbing. The truth is my pride, my roar is my guide. I roar like thunder, my heart's aflame. Truth my armor, you'll know my name.
And you will know my name. I am Monty the Latter-day Lion. I am right here with my good friend Zandriel, Latter-day son of Mosiah. How you doing, man?
Good. You know, I think given I've been watching you and you know, Unapologetic Truth go on about like Peacemaker, Peacekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to change it to Mosiah, Aries' son, because that's just, you know, there's Peacemaker, there's Peacekeeper, then there's me.
I could definitely see that, honestly. I definitely could.
Hey, you got to have the peacemakers to get me to calm down and the peacekeepers to go, okay, Mosiah, we have a peace. Back down, boy.
Down, boy. No. Okay. So, just so everyone is aware, if you are curious here on the upper left hand of the screen, I am starting something a bit new. I want to invite people who may not necessarily agree with me or my takes to come and have a discussion. This sends you directly to my email. If you want to set up a discussion, just send me an email, say what you disagree with, and we'll get something set up. So that way we can either clear the air or make some good television. Who knows? Oh goodness. So Xander, you sent me some stuff. And My goodness, man.
I have no regrets. Okay, like
No regrets. No regrets.
I here's my philosophy. They want to sit and tell us how we're wrong to our face, and then when we correct them, they get all offended. But then they'll go behind our backs when they realize, oh crap, I'm getting corrected. I have no regrets, going behind enemy lines and making them look like idiots. Like they're doing it themselves. It's, if you're an idiot when nobody's watching, are you still an idiot?
Is it really? Is it really you making them look like an idiot, or are you just magnifying? Are you just magnifying it, really?
Well, I think that goes back to the old saying: if a woman is wrong and no man's around, is she still right?
Well, okay, I'm not going to touch that one.
Sorry, my wife's right by me. She just shot me a look too. But no, it goes back to the
As she should.
If a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it still? If you're an idiot when nobody's there to correct you, are you still an idiot?
If a creedalist makes a theological statement, is he still right? Or no? Was he ever right? No.
That's
I don't
implying
know. I don't even. I
right.
keep falling. Yeah, I mean, he was never right. Anyway, we've got some things to kind of throw out here. I want to start with some screenshots, right?
Yes.
I want to start with this.
Okay.
So
also, Mike, I know that you're probably peeping because he always peeps me. I know if you're probably peeping and watching this now, you're the moron that said this. I hold no responsibility.
People get after me. All right, sweet. All right, let's do this. Oh God. No. Okay. Explain the context here. What's going on here?
So I was just, I don't even know. I wasn't like, I'm friends with, I follow both Pending Catholic and Dave, the Orthomo. And I saw Dave and I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting because I'm like, I know also, Pending's cool, pretty chill, but like Dave can go from zero to not like chill to not chill in like a hat drop.
Right.
And so like, I just pop right in and see that right there, this first one right there. Joe Smith was not a Christian, he was an interloper.
An interloper.
And I'm waiting to see.
Ever elaborate on that?
No.
No. Okay.
No. I was waiting. I'm like, okay, I'm screenshotting this because I'm curious. Like, okay, let's explain. Let's see. And then nothing. Just going. And I'm taking mine. I'm doing this on my breaks at work. I think I was on my lunch break during this one, actually. So, my me time at work, that the one time that I'm not about to, my coworkers, I'm getting ready to this guy because he won't explain how Joseph Smith was an interloper.
Oh my goodness!
I took one for the team. I took one for Friday Night Roast Fest. But so he says that, and so I'm like, "Are we getting an explanation?" And I don't even remember what Pending and Moon what they ever talked about. It was more sitting there like, okay, has Mike said anything else like worth? Okay, no, not really. He's, and then that leads into the other ones.
Okay, all right.
Which
all right,
actually
let's
does go into a little bit on what the recordings I sent was.
Okay.
So then he goes in. I don't even know what Dave said because I'd actually hopped out at that point because I think I was hopping over to Sammy's live a little bit too. So I was like all day today, so I'm missing things said. But he goes right
and says Joe changed the Bible, put himself there, and got caught. Okay, so this is actually pretty interesting, right? Like this is one of the more common criticisms that are often levied at us. Like Joe Smith inserted himself into the Bible. Okay, so they're talking specifically about
Genesis 50.
Right.
Yeah.
And the circumstance here is that, like, in any of the manuscripts that we currently have, even going to the Dead Sea Scrolls, which admittedly are the oldest text that we currently have available as far as the Hebrew Bible goes, but it's not the
which
oldest.
Still isn't It's like still isn't great. Like
it only goes back to about 400 BC. So
which means either we've got 2,000-3,000 years of or 4 if you take the 4,000 from Adam to Christ.
Right.
We got about 4,000 years of oral tradition, or we have to accept that things have been made to miss.
Right. And so, like, inserting himself into the thing. Here's kind of the common retort that I would give is, did Joseph actually preach from the Joseph Smith translation?
Oh,
The
I
answer is
use
no.
that all the time. I use
Yeah.
that all the time. It'll be like, so what was it? It's like he worked on it, declared it done, and then kind of just put it away.
Well, he didn't even finish it. Like he did. Like
Well,
it was one of those things where he just like he got at it, and then like he didn't
so
really
Joseph
finish
did.
it.
I have to correct you on this. This is one thing that I've learned. Joseph did declare it finished.
Okay.
He did actually specifically say this is done, but it's kind of that thing where you're like, okay, I finished this, and then you pull it off the shelf and tinker with it, and then put it back, and then
So it
pull it and
wasn't
tinker
really
with it
ever
again.
done per se.
So he's like, he said that God has declared it done. Like, I don't need to work, but then what continued on it throughout, like up
Yeah.
until Carthage. But it was one of those he went through, did like all, and then would come back and be like, okay, and
Mhm.
would tweak it, but it wasn't like, oh, he was tweaking it. Like when you actually follow the tracking of it, it was one of those like he might do John 1 chapter 5 verses 3 through 6, and then like 4 months later he'd go do something in verse 7. So it wasn't like he was tweaking what he'd already done. He was continually, it was like a software. He was continually patching it.
Right.
But yeah, he did openly declare it finished. I can't remember exactly where he did, but so that's like when people, well, I always say, like, he never preached from it, but he also wasn't ever never actually hands off with it once he was done with it.
Right. Well, and that's the interesting thing. Like the Kirtland sale from a couple years ago, right? Like like we got essentially what survived from it, in that sale. So I think that's fantastic. Okay. So yeah, but when it comes to like, him declaring and everything like that, like I don't know if you were there. I forget who it was. Maybe it was some other Protestant or whatever. But they were mentioning how like Joseph inserted himself, like, okay, did he ever preach from it? Well, why would that matter to people who were already like, he would hide that kind of thing from everyone until they were already brainwashed by him. I was like, he didn't even preach this to people who were members of the church. What are you talking about?
This was like, I this is what I don't get. Joseph didn't really preach to non-members. In fact, if you ever read, all of his sermons were always dictated towards the member. It was the missionaries who did the, hey, come,
Right.
And at so like, because I was actually going back and forth. Who was it? Oh, I'm trying to think. It actually might have been Mike, to be honest. It might have been this guy. And he's like, yeah, Joseph was so charismatic that he just got people to listen to his word. I was like, most people that Oliver Cow heard the rumors of the crazy Smith kid.
Right.
They're like this. There's no way. Like, no way this is true. Finds out it's true. Reads the Book of Mormon. Like, Sidney Rigdon heard about it. It was like, no way. Read it and joined. Like, all of them did that. And Joseph never acted. In fact, he was very cautious about public with it because of how it was only until the missionaries started going over to England that, it was, we're going to tell people about this actively versus, passively. You're listening and you are here, which, ironically is, that speaking of inserting, really like somebody who kind of inserted himself into some messianic prophecies. But, we say we hit that, we get called heretics.
Right. Well, and this is the thing, like going into the whole like scripture aspects thing, like we have no idea where like of any of the original manuscripts for the Old or the New Testament. Like the oldest, as far as like the Old Testament is concerned, we have with the Dead Sea Scrolls. With the New Testament texts, we have nothing by the original authors. But there are some texts that we can get somewhat close, but they're still long after the apostles had died.
Well, that brings up a very, very I don't want to say concerning, but that brings up a very good point of why did they why did the Old Testament get so written? Like, okay, we started writing this down, and then it took them. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I'm following a guy saying he's, the Messiah, I'm going to be writing it down as it's happening, not sitting there 30 years later going, "Oh,
Right.
crap! I heard it from this guy who walked
Well,
with him. I need to write
and
this
here's
down."
the funny thing. And here's the funny thing. Like, none of the authors, for instance, of the Gospels identify themselves. Ever.
Mhm.
Like, we
I don't-
have, like you look at, like, for instance, what Paul wrote. Like, let me pull up, like, for instance, the beginning of, like, say, 1 Corinthians, right?
Mhm.
We have the salutation here. And you're
I'm
going to
pulling it up
have
on my phone, too.
you're going to have to ignore all of my tabs. But Paul
Dang,
called to
bro.
be yeah, I know. A lot of this is research, believe it or not. But anyway,
Well,
Paul
if I showed you my research tabs, it would be D&D 8th, like D&D first edition archive, D&D music,
well, either way.
Resident Evil, Project Umbrella, Japanese to English, and it'll
Come
be
on,
like,
Xander.
oh, don't.
Gosh. Yeah. But no, like this is primarily research for all the other videos that I've got down in the pipeline. But like you look at verse 1 here, right? 1 Corinthians 1:1. Paul called to be an apostle of Christ Jesus by the will of God, and our brother Sosthenes to the church of God that is in Corinth. Like, he identifies himself. Paul, despite this likely being a copy of a copy of a copy, is still identifying himself at the very beginning of this letter. Meanwhile, we've got, like, for instance, Romans. I mean, Paul identifies himself here in Romans.
Mhm.
And then we'll say, for instance,
Well, I think even Peter, if you go to First Peter, Peter identifies himself. I think all the epistles distinctly.
right. Peter, an apostle of
Hold
Jesus Christ.
on. John does not identify himself, at least in First John.
Yeah, First John. There's no identification there.
Neither none of
Sec-
John's epistles have any.
Yeah, yeah. There's no identification of who wrote John, so we really don't know who really wrote the 3 letters of John.
Jude does,
Jude.
and
Yep, Jude, the servant of Jesus
James.
Christ and brother of James. Revelation. The revelation of Jesus Christ shown to his servant John. Okay. But then you go to Matthew, right?
Right.
It starts off as an account of the genealogy of Jesus the Messiah, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Where is the author identified? In every other instance, because this is still a letter to members of the church, particularly those who are Jewish members of the church.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
I was
then
like,
the Mark, no author identified at all. Like, all of these, like, we really don't know who wrote them.
Nope.
Really. Like, so I don't necessarily know, like, what we can go off of here, but because we don't know who wrote them, we don't know what was ultimately contained. And then you go into the councils that formed these and closed the canon and established the canon to begin with, and how much they were actually tossing out because they didn't fit their metaphysical, theological, or philosophical proclivities.
Right. I'm actually, hold on. See. Okay.
Let's see here.
I'm trying to find something. Give me a second. Okay. You want to screen share on my end real quick.
Okay.
So you brought that up. So there's a site. It's called Early Christian Writings. And if you look right here, so you start here.
So you need to share your own screen, actually.
Oh, I don't know how to do that.
There should be an icon. There you go.
Okay. So.
All right.
Is that doing it? No.
It's popping up.
Okay.
There we go.
So if you come over and look at it, I thought you had to do it. Like, so, passion narrative, that's actually not the Gospels. But from what you said, until they closed the canon. So let's look, 30 to, and you end right here with the, and you got Acts of, Dialogue of the Savior, Second Apocalypse of James, you want to go up. Second, okay, we got Second Peter, which is in there. Secret Apocalypse of Peter, Preaching of Peter. Let's see.
And these were all writings that were not really considered authoritative for Scripture, but these were all also debated on so much during the councils of the 4th century. How much are we missing, really?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was like. So, to prove my point, Christianity. Now apply that. Let's go to the Old Testament and what have they tossed out, or if if you get into historical elements, what might have been. I'm not saying that a smart person would make sure you have more than one copies of your sacred writings, but we know sometimes they only had one copy. The city goes up in flames, and that copy is the starter.
Yep.
Unfortunately. So back to the whole comment, he added himself to the Bible. We don't know if as far back as we can get is 400 BC, and we claim some of this was we claim Joseph was 2000 BC.
Right. Well, and the thing is too is that when it comes to something like the manuscripts or the text that's actually in Genesis, you don't have a very clear indication of who actually wrote Genesis to begin with. I mean, yeah, we focused a lot on the New Testament, but an author in Genesis is never identified. Traditionally, it's Moses, so we'll go with that for the time being. But even then,
well, I mean, that brings up some, up some other implications if Moses is right in that.
Right.
You've already had 3,000-ish years, give or take a few hundred, that he's finally writing tradition down.
Right.
And that's why I said, what's the timeline between Joseph, Genesis 50, Joseph, the patriarch, Joseph of Egypt, and Moses? There's nothing to say that maybe he did write that. Maybe it didn't get put in there. Who knows? It's oral tradition. Maybe that, he didn't think, oh, hey, this is relevant. It's not.
But that's the funny thing is that again, adding himself into the Bible. Again, we have no idea. But I think the bigger implication here is that, did he actually preach from it? No. And like you said, he only preached to those whom were already members of the church. And if they were already members of the church and he never taught from the Joseph Smith translation, what does that say about what he ultimately thought of himself and what the Joseph Smith translation ultimately held? It's useful for studying, don't get me wrong, but for people to say oh, he added himself into the Bible, when have we ever used the Joseph Smith translation in any of our approaches to things outside of additional study helps and doctrinal clarifications?
I don't even think we use it, and I don't even think the Come Follow Me manual ever talks about it.
Not really. I mean,
I don't.
The only time the Come Follow Me manual ever really looked at was when we were talking about the Doctrine and Covenants, and technically Moses was part of the Joseph Smith translation.
Yes, yeah, Moses, yes, and Matthew, Joseph Smith, Matthew, but I don't think
we'll go over that next year.
I was that's next year, but I don't think our big the JST for John 1:1 that everyone likes to try to throw at it. I don't even think that's we teach that. We read it as it is, and we go in,
yeah.
Which, thank you to people who actually sit and look at those manuscripts and go, hey, not to knock it, translation is as much of an art as it is a science.
Right.
I was actually talking to a guy that I know who does document translation for Homeland. And he's like, you will be looking at something thinking it's a straightforward thing. And he's like, one word changed it from a, official government document detailing troop movements to the president of Uganda's shopping list. He's like, if you are not careful in translation, you can change things entirely without.
Oh,
Like
goodness.
it's a varied approach. He's like, you don't sit there and just go, Sokai means bed, and then go, he lay in his permanent bed, and oh, okay, he was, what, like, you have to literally figure out, okay, they don't have a word for, grave, they don't have a word for this, they have the word permanent bed, which is, grave, and so he was kind of explaining how that works, and is like, so not to knock it, thank you JST for maybe making the points go, okay, but I've never, so thank you NRSV for actually going, let's review these manuscripts consistently and as we learn things. Also, Jaden, I know you're probably watching because you've been peeping my profile. Just because they update it does not make it a bad translation.
Right.
It means they're being honest.
Yep.
Unlike you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's keep going here. I think we've beat that to death here. We've talked half an hour just on the JST type thing. So.
Right. Well, bring up so screenshot number 3 right here. The defenders protected the faith and people from heresy. I'm going to assume that's getting back to, he calls them defenders. I'm assuming he's talking about the Carthage Grace who decided to murk Joseph.
Okay.
Again, I was live hopping, but that's the same thing that I see Catholics use to justify the Crusades and burning people like Jean d'Arc, like, or like the Rome used to justify burning Tyndale, like they were heretics because they went against like. Okay, now if I were to defend the faith, which for me is LDS, then we'll start going, oh no, you can't do that. Let me tell you, the only time I'm defending the faith is when some Iranian paratroopers land in Utah.
Right.
And then they're gonna find out what a long range Mormon can do.
Oh goodness. Nah, according to Gavin Newsom, they're gonna land in California first.
Now, that's entirely relying on their non-existent Air Force.
Oh yeah, that's true. But anyway,
I'm so glad this isn't TikTok.
But the thing is though, is that like here's the funny thing, right? Like the for real. So glad this ain't TikTok. I have to constantly remind myself not to use TikTok safe language on YouTube. I can actually speak a little bit more freely. Ironically enough, but oh goodness. Hey guys, we got some more people trickling in here. Thanks for coming in. But in any case, it's a little bit more freeing talking on YouTube, admittedly.
I'm still gonna be somewhat TikTok friendly, but that's just because I don't need I don't need Isaac getting mad and hit you with copyright infringement.
Oh, we're not. Honestly, because he can't do copyright infringement if we're offering commentary. That's the thing.
Right. Oh, it's Isaac. He'll do it if it makes his
try it. Yeah, I know. But when it was Isaac blocked me on TikTok, so I don't care. So,
dude, he blocked me on one and then not the other, and I was like, so when did you become a little?
Yeah, no.
Let's block people.
That. Let's not do that.
But no, it's like, so why'd you decide to block me on the one and not the other, and all of a sudden block?
All right. Here's where we get to the really good stuff.
Right. I told you though, the name's got to be changed to Mosiah Aries' son. Like I'm picking the fight, buddy.
There we go. All right. Now to showcase the beauty that is the TikTok silly goosery.
And to add the context, so this is what Mike does. He hides in ex-Mormon lives or anti-Mormon lives and will sit and talk his thing because he knows he won't get corrected.
Right.
It's only when LDS gets up that he gets, he'll sit and refute, but he doesn't make claims as. Okay, I got to think of a new word. The one I want to use is still not YouTube friendly.
All right. So let's go ahead and go through this, and we'll have our fun here. Let's have some fun.
I'm not hearing it now. I heard it fine when we tested it.
Well, let me try doing this here. Let me stop sharing for a little bit. Maybe I need to. Okay, that's why. I didn't have the thing switched on. Here we go. All right, let's try it now.
He certainly was aware of a lot of those things, but he did do plagiarism on other people's work.
Plagiarism.
Have you read the Book of Mormon?
Yeah, I've read parts of it.
Okay.
I was going to read it all, but as I came back with questions, the Mormons on TikTok were so insincere and rude. I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" So no, at this point I don't.
I would say, because I mean, and I've read it. Theologically speaking, there's actually nothing that I would say is inherently like blasphemous or incorrect in the Book of Mormon. At least when I read it. Now, to be fair, Opulent, Isaiah isn't plagiarized because they do attribute it to Isaiah, and there's no copyright on the King James Bible. So even if they didn't attribute it, now that's an interesting thing. There are textual variants in Isaiah that have been found after that have found themselves in the Book of Mormon. So that is an interesting discussion.
Hold on.
That the textual variants.
So let's get into that. It goes into the. Okay. It's really bad on me.
Okay, let's see here. Let me stop sharing really quick. Try that now.
So, there we go. So he goes into he plagiarized other people's works.
Uh-huh.
Now, Pending asks him, "Have you read it?" And he says, "I read parts." And when it came with the Mormons on TikTok were just so insincere, so I gave up. This is the same guy, take in mind. He literally told, and I'm not going to censor this, so if you get in trouble, Monty, I will take the fall. He told somebody to shut their fucking mouth. Because they were an uneducated bitch and needed to listen.
Wow. Okay.
So the Mormons were just insincere, but you're telling somebody because they don't have a college degree, they're not educated. And and then I didn't show Opulent's comment. I probably should have, but I was just dealing with. I wasn't thinking about that, and I was actually hit screen. I'm gonna be honest. That was probably when I hit record and was doing dishes. So I have no idea. I just was like, I know this is going to be good, but as Pending said, there's no copyright on King James. So Joseph, if he really wanted to plagiarize, he could have verbatim this.
I do have to give Pending Catholic some credit on that. Absolutely. Kudos to him, right? He reading the Book of Mormon, and the thing is that any claims of plagiarism, if people try to claim it plagiarized the King James Bible, well, no, because like he said, there's attribution given. When you look at Isaiah, Nephi, Mormon when he's in Mosiah, when he's abridging Mosiah, and
I do think later they say something about he plagiarized Mark, and somebody was like, well, are you talking when Christ was talking to people and they say that Christ is in America giving the same sermon? I do think that does get said later on, but
right.
But
you
said,
again, who is speaking in the sermon at the temple? Who's speaking? It's the same person who delivered the Sermon on the Mount. It's Jesus. And
that would be the
same exact thing.
So that would be if I go give a speech, a talk at church in my ward, and then move to a different ward and give the exact same talk, and one of my old ward member goes, he plagiarized that talk. it's my same talk. I just gave it to a different
Right.
people.
Well, and the thing is, though, is that like high counselors do that all the time. Return missionaries do that all the time.
This is like, I think I went, and this was more just because they did I can't remember how it ended up playing out, but I ended up going to the same homecoming for or the same, missionary travel. So it wasn't the homecoming, and it was literally the same talk each time. Like, you could tell he wrote it down, and then it was just word to word. Like, as I was writing this talk, it was like, okay, and then and there was some variations, like you could tell clearly he'd written, but like it was like literally like the exact same when it would get into it. It's like, okay, outside of the little about my mission and as I prep this, but it was like verbatim. It's like, okay. I said, one of them is I'd mixed up the weeks of my buddy's farewell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going, and then the other one I was going with my friend because I was just royally mad at my leader. And I'm like, man, I've heard the same talk 3 times in a month period. And she like laughed.
But imagine if they claimed that person plagiarized it, despite it being their words. It's like, oh, jeez. All right.
At least we're not like the Muslims saying, well, we know what Jesus said and not a true. At least we say, no, this is actually what he said.
Right.
Oh man, Protestant. So, all right, let's keep going because
let's keep going. Let's keep going.
This is the bearable one of the 40 minutes.
Oh, lovely. All right. Well, let's have some more fun.
In Isaiah, if they had access to earlier, obviously much earlier scrolls, the same textual variant probably wouldn't be there. And also, if it were, well, so here's the thing, because I was told multiple things growing up, is that he actually, like the stone in the hat and just dictated, but I was also taught at different times that he actually like read and translated. The common general consensus is the stone in the hat thing. So
it's not.
No.
But what's never made a ton of sense to me is why you would have a group of people that typically, no, you can't come question my morality, typically would write things on scrolls and papyrus in Hebrew. And now they move locations to the Americas.
Oh, Alio's being
and
awesome.
Now they're writing on gold plates, which isn't what Hebrews have done in the past. And they're writing in Egyptian, which isn't what Hebrews did. They would have written in Hebrew.
Yeah.
So to me, that part specifically doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know why they would be multiple hundreds of years away from Egypt and writing in Egyptian.
Well, and I'll add something to that if I can. If the Indians of North America, the Aboriginal people, are the descendants, then why, directly linked to Israel, then why is Joseph? Because he's not an Indian.
There
I was
are
gonna say,
more than just those tribes.
I'm echoing again. By the way, you're gonna have to stop sharing every time.
Yeah.
But no, that's what I was gonna say. Like, why isn't he's not an Indian? Okay, so then if the Germans, the Ashkenazis, are descendants of then why are the Sephardics? Because they're not Ashkenazi. Like, that's the, that's that logic. Like, if the Irish are descendants of the Gauls, then why aren't the Scots? Because they're not Irish.
Right. Like, they, mm-hmm.
And I
said this was the bearable part?
Yes. But the Pending's credit, when you look at things and go, okay, they wrote on scrolls, not plates. But then we find there were plates being used by the Persians and other
Mhm.
at the time. And you're telling me that they're, we see how Rome influenced Jerusalem in the first century. You're
Yup.
telling me Persia didn't do that? Like, so what I see is a two-pronged approach that again, this might just be the uneducated Mormon talking here, but when we find things and go, wow, we know these people did this, and then you claim that, we'll say the Persians did write on plates.
Mhm.
The Persians, conquered Jerusalem.
Right.
We know Rome. Sorry, I'm like, camera's throwing me off. Rome influenced. So therefore, Persia's influence. Like, now I'm not going to say it was the most common, but we have also, guess what? There have been sightings of possible metal plates found in, Mesoamerica. And that's not to say that they weren't writing things on scrolls. And when Mormon abridged it, that was the best option he had to abridge it. So that way he's not, writing a 90-foot scroll or like 1,000, or Moroni's carrying it and he's got to deal with what? 20 million scrolls?
Right. Like,
Like-
and keep in mind though, I mean, the plates weren't like lightweight or anything like that. They were roughly about 50 pounds. But
Okay, my 5-year-old weighs that much, and I can throw him on my shoulders for like
okay, all right.
for like a 2-hour concert would be fine. So I'm not saying that they weren't light, but I throw 50-pound cases at work all day, like
Right.
So like,
And it's not
it's
that
much
difficult
easier.
to do that. Like,
yeah, it's not hard. They're definitely by no
Right.
means where like you pick them up and it's a breeze. Like you will feel it at the end of the day.
mhm.
But when you're on the run, what's easier to do? 50-pound plates in the bag, or like 50 million scrolls that you got to find and find a
Which
place
would
to
probably
hide.
end up weighing more and be more cumbersome and awkward and oh, hi Lamanites, a slice like slice.
Right?
Oh geez. All right. So let's keep going here.
He was Scottish. I know.
Yeah, so
You cut out. Read it.
we're talking about the plates. I'm doing good. How you doing, man? Pending. I don't even know your name,
Alex.
but I can just call you Pending. That's
Ilios is common.
it's good.
Was that a genuine argument?
Hey, I don't care if you call
So
me by
we're
my
talking about
government name. That's fine.
No, that's fine. I don't mind calling you Pending. That's fine. So we're talking about the plates.
On with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think the interesting thing is the way that people give supporting evidence for the resurrection, be it the minimal facts or the eyewitnesses. We have the exact kind of evidence for the plates.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
people
do.
just scoff at it, and they just say, "Well, no, because I don't like the conclusions you draw."
Mhm. That's typically how that happens. Absolutely.
So
Now that's why I don't use, like, I'm not going to deny that plates were involved, because then I would have to deny Jesus Christ being resurrected. I'm simply not going to do that. I don't have a problem saying golden plates were involved, because I think
it's not
that's
even just-
silly to do. Because like Trent
It's
Horn
not-
did that with Jacob Hansen, and he didn't do a very good job at it.
Yeah, for good reason.
Well,
and it's not even just the gold.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was like, it is Trent Horn. Like,
Yeah, Trent
but
Horn. Trent Horn's an interesting duck, to be honest.
right.
Like, there's a lot of things. Like, I don't know. Like, even though both he and Joe Heschmeyer are Catholic, I hesitate to say that they're actually cut from the same cloth. Like, Joe Heschmeyer's, to me at least, comes off as intelligent.
I was like, Heschmeyer to me and comes off as that guy who he studies, he learns it.
Right.
Trent Horn comes off as the guy of, I know my stuff, so me knowing my stuff means I can prove your stuff wrong.
Right.
Like, it comes back down to, you could probably tell me all about the theology aspect of things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care to study that. I
Right.
care to study like the war end of religion, as as oxymoron as that it. Just because look and go, yes, big army move here, small army, doesn't mean the theology isn't important. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't irrelevant. Like,
Right. Well, and I want
so,
to highlight this comment from Greg here. The best witness of the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the Book of Mormon.
mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and that's what even Pending said that. He's like, I'm not going to deny the cassettes to deny the resurrection of Christ. Like, Pending Catholic said that.
Which is interesting considering like he was a member of the church at one point, but now he's going like that's why he has his pending Catholic thing because he no longer
Right.
believes it is true. But that statement, honestly, it makes me wonder, wait, does he actually still think the Book of Mormon's true?
Well, there's a guy, it was Sammy's Life Today, and he's like, he's not LDS, but he's like, I find that I'm finding more Christians are actually reading the Book of Mormon and coming away knowing with a second witness of Christ,
Mm-hmm.
even if he's like I'm not LDS and I read it and go, this is 100 like this reinforces my belief.
Right.
And then you get guys like Mike, I had questions and gave up because I didn't like they were insincere.
Everyone else was so insincere. Like, really? We have other people who actually have said that like people are like the most sincere ever. Again, not that we're taking credit for any of that.
No, no, especially again, if I have not reiterated it for the chat, I am not a peacemaker or a peacekeeper. I will start the fight. And if I got people going, hey, at least I've had people that I've crossed swords with. I come across them again. I'm already like Felix, like ready to go. And he's like, hey, dude, I appreciate because at least I know you're honest and sincere. Right. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna put it down. Let's get along right now.
Right. I mean, like, well, no, I would still say, Xander, that you are a peacemaker in that sense, despite the fact that you would start the fight. But there
I didn't start the fight.
Peacemaking. There are different forms of peacemaking, I will say. There are those who are, butter knives. Still technically a weapon, but mostly ineffectual for anything other than just spreading things. Then there are the butcher knives. Then there are the swords, and you can have, and they're all very different types of swords. Then you get into firearms. You, Xander, are a bazooka.
I was going to say the 50 cal.
You're not quite to the tank level yet.
Hey, look,
or to the F-16.
Hey, you gave me more firepower. I was going to say 50 cal long range, good sniper. Like, I'm going to hit you from far because people go, oh, he's like, I had somebody, an ex-Mormon was like, so why'd you pick that name? And I was like, because I said, I tell everyone, I'm a convert because I was up and out. So like everything. I'm like, I was raised in the church, but I was so out of it. Like I said, God had to bend my arm. I'm like, I was this, and they're like, oh, they're like, that's cool. And then like two lives later, they're like, dude, I would not expect this from somebody with your name. And I'm like, hey, even Helaman, the prophet knew when to take a sword. I just happened to go.
Wait till you actually get to know me.
Right? I was like, wait till you get to know. Just wait. Like I don't wake up and choose violence. Violence wakes up and chooses me.
Well,
the Geneva Convention is scripture, as in they knew, hey, there's going to be a guy named Xander. We need to put the rules in place now.
All right. All right, let's keep going here. Let's continue to be entertained by Mark's silly goose or Mike's silly gooseness and Elios.
And opulent.
And opulence a bit of a silly goose too. But yeah, like Elios. When I was listening to this, because I was listening to it, I wasn't watching it. I was listening to it, so I wasn't watching the screen. I wasn't thinking that there were like of the comments that were going to be popping up, and so to see Elios's commentary is just mwah. Elios, you see this, brother? I love you. This is awesome. All right, let's keep going.
Plates, though, right? We also the witnesses have the touch of the miraculous and the touch of the physical, right? again, akin to that of the witnesses for Jesus Christ. There's the miraculous and the physical, right? They touched him and they ate with him, and then they also, saw him ascending into heaven and all these other things, right? And so on par with that, we have the three witnesses on two separate occasions. They didn't all see it together at once. It was Oliver and David seeing it one time, and then Martin Harris seeing it another time.
What,
And they all
can you
agreed
say
on
again? What did they see?
It was two separate visions, and they all agreed on what they saw, right? So you have David and Oliver saw it first with Joseph, and then Joseph and Martin saw the vision later.
Of
so
the
you have
plates?
of the angel and the plates, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you have two separate times, and the people are saying, yes, we agree that we saw the angel, he presented the plates, we heard the voice of the Lord saying the translation's true, right?
Okay.
And that's something that that people who support the the resurrection say. It's like, oh, it wasn't just one thing, like they saw him a couple times, and so, and it's not even that, like minimal facts, right? Like you have people in Palmyra saying, yeah, there was a stone box that was found in the hill and ended up rolling down the hill, and then people kept plowing over it, and it finally broke up, and now it's gone, right? But you have unbelievers who are proving the point that there actually was a stone box, just like Joseph Smith said there was, that he pulled out all the stuff out of. And then you have someone else who was an enemy of Joseph Smith saying, oh yeah, I went to where he said, and I actually saw that there was a hole there, right where he said there was. So like,
was,
you know what I mean? It's not that he just like made something in his barn and then made up a story. There's all these, from enemy sources, witnesses to the whole story that he's giving, right?
Sure.
Like, so there's minimal facts surrounding the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, and I think a lot of the arguments Mike's making is
Nonsense.
I'm going to bypass the Book of Mormon.
Bullshit.
It's coming forth, the witnesses and all these. I'm just going to point out things I don't like, and I think that's fine to point out things you don't like, but you also have to show the foundation of, you can't just presuppose it's bad. Like our foundational claim is that the coming forth of the Book of Mormon is miraculous, and if it is, then there's something more to it than just being able to say I don't like certain things.
Okay, so I wanna read it bomb here. Awesome guy. Like he and I have tag teamed on several things on both my lives on TikTok. I don't think I've ever seen him go live personally on TikTok, but he's up on other people's panels and things like that.
Oh, dude, he's a total stud muffin.
He's a rock star. But he's a rock star, honestly. He knows a lot of his stuff, but and what he's saying here about the hole in the ground in Palmyra is 100% correct.
Mommy.
Uh-oh. Am I back?
Here.
Am I here? Am I good? Okay.
You're here.
Okay. Gotta love live streaming, ladies and gentlemen. Gotta love going live. Anything can happen. But no, like the fact that like people who weren't even believers of Joseph Smith, even people who didn't necessarily believe in God or go to any kind of churches or anything like that, knew that there was a hole in the ground there that had a stone box that, again, people plowed over it enough that it broke up, and now there's nothing there. But back in the 1800s, back in the 1820s and 1830s, yeah, there was something there. There was a stone box that was emptied.
Well, I actually, and that's what I was going to say. I hate the echo because I was going to say, I'm like, I actually think it was Sally Chase went up to the Cumorah and found it and said, yes, it's there. But she didn't actually open it. And then the guy went and was mad. And he's like, because I think when he said that there was a box, it was empty. I think it was because he went back and was going at Sally about it. And it's like, you told me it was there. And she's like, all I knew was the stone just showed me the box. It didn't show the contents. But then, they said people are thinking, hey, we found it. And then they I can't remember if they tried to dig it out or something, but it basically fell and then just got, gets buried. I don't know what your agricultural background is, but let me tell you something. I am finding things that I'm like, I remember when something broke on my equipment, and I'll go plow the field 5 years later, and I'll kick it up.
Wow.
So like, it's not likely, or it's not unlikely that if it fell out of Kimura, like through erosion, or they dug it and they just couldn't move it,
Right.
that it got buried, and then just eventually they're turning. And plows don't work, and like they flip the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So it's your layer.
Well, and this is another interesting thing. So when, when people say like, "Oh, he made the plates in his backyard," and yet everyone is talking about the stone box, and then there's this question: did Joseph make that too while making the plates?
mm-hmm.
So it's so funny to try to say like, "Oh, he made it up. It was all just made up, a bunch of mumbo jumbo." Like,
well, I said I think it was
Really?
Sally Chase is the one that like pointed it, because it was very clear. Like nobody knew where Joseph was keeping it. Like if you take the accounts when he got him off Kimura with Emma, they laid ambushes. Like they didn't follow him up.
mm-hmm.
They didn't know where he was going, but they waited for him.
They
to try
knew
to
where it
ambush him.
was, though. That was the thing. They knew where the plates were originally buried. The fact that
Oh,
again,
that's right, because he'd put him in the stump, which is right.
Mhm.
That's right. I think that was yes. So it was Sally Chase that warned him
Mhm.
about that. That was the
Well,
story I was thinking
Sally
of.
Chase was the village witch, and that was the thing here. Yeah. So and that was like like the Chase
I air
sister's
quote the
daughter's a chick.
witch.
Yeah. But
But,
that was her
yeah.
reputation, right? Like she
That's
was,
what I said.
Yeah.
Witch, but I know a guy that could take a downing rod and find water better than most guys could. Like, witch.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I mean, in 1800s Palmyra, yeah, no, that
Hey,
you don't have any better.
a witch in 1800s Palmyra was anybody who was using paper to roll a doobie and claiming they could find water. Let's.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad we're not on TikTok. We would have gotten flagged so many times by now.
They're rolling a bunch of doobies in their wagon down by the river.
Oh gosh. All right.
Sorry, Aggie sent me a video. It was like Chris Farley teaching the word of wisdom better than Sunday school.
Yeah. Oh gosh. All right, let's keep it going here. Let's see what Alex is. What pending Catholic is going to respond to this, huh?
Sure, that's fair. Well, and like I said, I don't deny the physicality of the plates existing. I don't know enough to say like, no, he just coerced a bunch of people to say that they did. I don't think that would be fair. I just don't necessarily agree. Like, again, my thing is like, it's weird that you have a people that typically they're writing on papyrus in scrolls, and then they move and they're writing in Hebrew, but now they're writing on gold plates in a language they don't speak historically. That doesn't make sense to me.
What do you mean they don't speak historically? What are you trying to say?
Why, at the time of Isaiah, they would have been a long time removed from Egypt. They wouldn't have kept... They had previously been writing everything in Hebrew. Why would they switch to writing just the Book of Mormon in Egyptian?
Okay, this is the problem here, because this is what pending Catholic is assuming, that they were writing in Reformed Egyptian from beginning to end, that Nephi's record was written in Reformed Egyptian. No, it really likely wasn't. It was likely written in Hebrew originally.
Well, hold on. I believe Nephi says, language of the Egyptians, learning of the Jews.
Yeah.
And I actually had a really good talk with Dalton on this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little rusty at it because I have to write in English, unfortunately. When you're in high school, when you're in high school and mom is snooping your journal or whatever notebook that I just write my thoughts down in, and then trying to turn them over to my therapist and be like, I learned the Greek alphabet so I could start writing in a different language. I still use the English grammatic, because all I needed was the characters, but I still use the English grammar rules. So it's not unlikely to say, hey, Hebrewic grammar rules, but this is kind of what we were using, if even that.
But
Or
you don't
Egyptian.
speak Greek.
No.
No.
No, I wish. I said all I needed to do is you learn the characters and how to go from A, what A in Greek is, to A in English. You can write it out.
Like,
But
and right. And like, you don't have to know how to write or to read, or no, you do have to know how to read it. You don't have to know how to speak it in order to read and write it. That's where Pending Catholic is ultimately failing here in his assumptions.
Well, and another assumptional failure he made, this is, again, they aren't in Egypt, but in 600 BC, Egypt was still essentially at the time an ancient superpower. In 600 BC. In fact, if you track the Egyptian Empire, it wouldn't be for about another 200 years. Again, this is about 600 BC. This is Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, all that. It wouldn't be for another 200-ish years, give or take, 50 on either side, that Alexander the Great would actually come through and would put, he would put them on their knees, and they, because like Cleopatra's line, the Ptolemaics were from Alexander's general.
Right.
Like, he basically comes in, put them on their knees, put his people in charge. They were still by all means a superpower, but that's, would be like the U.S. walking over, bitch slapping England, and then putting, a U.S. government official in charge and walking away. Like, all right, you guys are in charge, but at this point, all your leaders are going to be our guys.
Like that's the funny thing, right? Like, we have to be like, you have to make a very big leap in order to suggest, well, this language couldn't have existed because they didn't speak it in 600 BC. That doesn't mean they couldn't read and write it. And even then, like, how far away is Egypt from Jerusalem?
Hold on, let me Google that.
It's not that far, really. Just Googling distances here. Because, I mean, practically speaking, I mean, Egypt and Israel are practically next door neighbors. Jerusalem is not that far from the Egyptian border.
It is 433 miles away.
Yeah, like, I mean, modern day, you could make that drive in like,
that'd be
8 hours.
No, even less.
Yeah,
that's because, hold on, I'm pretty sure if you can still hear me.
Yeah,
that's less than it is to my mother-in-law's at the opposite end of Utah.
Yeah. No, yeah. You can go through the entire state of Utah in roughly about 6 hours if you're going slow.
I'm at the very top part of the state. Like, I'm literally 30 minutes from the Idaho border. And good traffic, it takes me about 5.5 hours. Like, and that would be if I straight shotted it, taking my kids and snacks. So realistically, it comes out to about 6.5.
Right.
But so that's only roughly 100 miles more for me. Like, I get back then, that would be a little bit of but that was what the Frank, that's what the merchant shells were.
And this was the thing. Like, it was just Sinai in between. Like, back in 600 BC, this was a trip. Yeah, it was a trip because, like you said, it was roughly 400 miles, but it was enough of one that, like, even in the first century, right? Like, you have Joseph and his family, if we were to believe the account found in Matthew, escaping to Egypt for a couple of years to escape Herod. Like, it's not that far.
it's far enough away. Herod wouldn't bother to go there. Also out of his jurisdiction, ironically. But whole different. He would
Still
far
part of the
enough he
Roman
wouldn't-
Empire.
Yeah. Yes, but Rome was very strict. You did not go
Yeah.
into another guy's area, but not the point. It's far enough Herod wouldn't go chase, but close enough they could get there fairly quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, like, think maybe a week tops traveling by donkey.
Hold on.
Tops.
Distance from Cairo to Jerusalem. Click on. All right. Hold on. I'm going to share this because
Yeah, go ahead
I
and
don't
share
want
that.
people. So this is a map.
Uh-huh.
Said a week tops, and this is from Egypt to Cairo, and this is
Jerusalem
modern
to Cairo.
roads.
Right.
Like, okay, I have no idea what that was, but all right. So
Just walking. Like walking. If we were to walk.
yeah, 159 hours. It said like 7 days when I was on it. So
Yeah. And this is just straight shotting it, not stopping for food or for rest breaks or sleeping or anything like that. This is 149 hours.
there's 100. So again, and this is if they decided to go from like Alexandria to Jerusalem. Right. But again, you got to they're going like this and then up like this. Like, I don't know what this area is, like why that's, unless that's just the roads. Cause but if you go kind of, would save you a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that I think is the big thing here. And so like when Pending Catholic is making statements like he did, to say that like, oh, they wouldn't have had the means in order to speak or read Egyptian. I'm sorry, but that's not the case.
All right, hold on.
Egyptian culture and Egyptian language and study was still there.
Well, hold on. I want to prove another point, since we're claiming again, I'm going to share this just quick. But
okay,
the New Testament was written in Greek. 400. They say that the New Testament was in Greek, right? They wrote it in Greek and Aramaic. So they would have been used. They're so far removed, but yet, why were our New Testament writers speaking and writing Greek when it's almost double the distance?
Right. Like, oh gosh, the conclusions that these people reach, like, really, it makes no sense at all.
That's what I said. I'm going to use that one now because I'm just thinking about it. Well, they couldn't have been doing that. They're out. Okay, so why was the New Testament in Greek?
Right. All right, let's keep going.
Man, we're halfway through.
Well, no. So if you're only thinking that the interaction with Egypt and the Hebrews is that of captivity, then you might be onto something. But it's not.
Thank you. We
Egypt
were just
was
talking about this.
Prominent in the Levant during that time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There was active.
But again,
issues with them then.
They were, all of the other stuff they were writing, even if they're interacting with the Egyptians, their writings are in Hebrew. So why would they switch
Why does that matter?
to writing in Egyptian once they get to America?
It wasn't it wasn't them who made the switch to Reformed Egyptian.
Well, and I was going to say, let's be realistic here. And I'm going to use, my aunt's, her family immigrated from Mexico when she was 9.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's early 40s now, maybe late 30s. I can't remember, but so she's been here for 90% of her life, give or take. She does things in English, yes, but also still in Spanish. Like, oh no, they everything else. Well, how do we know everything was done in Hebrew? You're muted, Monty.
I sometimes do this on TikTok too. But anyway, like like Lehi and his family would have been educated. They would have known the language of the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would have known all of it. In fact, let me actually kind of pull this up here from the Book of Mormon.
I was like, while you're pulling that up, when you get into that debate we had the other day with that moron, they had enough gold, Vlad. I couldn't remember his name for a second. You know, they had enough of a treasure that Laban wanted. You don't get that by being just your everyday illiterate fisherman.
Right.
At this point, I really want to, anytime they say they wrote, they would have only been in Hebrew, I just want to reply with mene mene.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay. So here's the funny thing, right? Like, Nephi actually does give what he's writing in the very first chapter of the Book of Mormon. Let me go ahead and pull this up here so that way we can actually see what's going on.
Yeah, Traystone made a good point. Paul was in the Egyptian city of Alexandria on Mars Hill proclaiming the unknown God.
Amen, Amen, Ra. Yep.
I told you. Mene, mene.
Yeah. But no, all right, take a look at this. Take a look at this, right? All right. Look at verse 2. This is 1 Nephi 1, verse 2. Yea, I make a record in the language of my father, which consists of the learning of the Jews and the language of the Egyptians.
That's what I said earlier. It's not unlikely that there's a combination of grammatical and alphabets getting mixed around.
Mm-hmm. Right. And this is another thing. Like, Aaron, I'm glad you brought this comment up, because the temple was prevalent in Egypt too. Just like, like you're saying, Nephi wasn't just learning the language of his fathers, which was the language of the Jews, which would have been Hebrew, but also in the temple language. And admittedly, that is, very much connected to not just the temple that was in Jerusalem, but also in Egypt. In fact, prior to the Babylonian occupation, there wasn't any kind of indication that there should only just be one singular temple. Like there was
I think that comes to that presupposition that they only had the one tabernacle until Solomon built the temple.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're traveling around before you enter into Jerusalem, find a permanent area, why would you have 1,000 different? If you're all traveling together, you need one. But if you disperse out, as you said, prior to the Babylonian smackdown, like that, why are we finding things that match ancient Hebrewic language, match ancient thought, that are temples, but they're just, that's a different thing, or false.
Right.
Only Solomon's temple.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So let's go ahead and keep going here. Oh,
also, I'm probably going to end in 20 minutes. It is technically day. I do wife a date.
All right. Well, we'll see about only going half. You said we had 40 minutes of this. We're only halfway through the first half, so we may.
We're only through the first. Yeah. Both of them are like 20 minutes long.
Good grief. Good grief. All right. Well, we'll see if we can get through the next 10 minutes here as slightly as unscathed as possible. So let's go ahead and pull this.
Right. You're saying Hebrews, the records we have from them is written in Hebrew. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But
right.
I think it's a jump.
No, Hebrews wasn't written in Hebrews. It was written in Greek.
But we don't have any indication to think that they were ever writing in Egyptian, do we?
Well, I'm just questioning your conclusion there, your question. I think maybe it's standing on shaky grounds because you're saying because the records we have of other Hebrews is in Hebrew, then Lehi couldn't have written, or they couldn't have written in Egyptian because other Hebrews
because
wrote
as far as I'm aware, we don't have any indication they were ever writing in Egyptian. So why would they now, when they come to America, be writing in Egyptian? That's my thing. Because for the longest time, obviously, it was a spoken tradition, right? Moses is very far removed from Adam and Eve, but we have the understanding that he wrote Genesis and Exodus, and we obviously don't have any proof if Travis is here, but that's the understanding historically. So for the longest time, obviously, we have an oral translation or transmission, but we have no indication that the Hebrews were ever writing this information down in Egyptian. So why then would you have this family of people that come from the Hebrew culture be the only ones that we have an indication they're writing in Egyptian, or even knew how, to be fair? We don't, I don't know why they would have had to write like in Egyptian even within their dealings. The way that Exodus or Genesis describes it is they had translators, so they wouldn't have necessarily needed to even know the Egyptian language.
Yeah, so I mean, I can look it up real quick, but again, you're harking back to the captivity. The claims of LDS would be that Lehi was interacting with Egyptians during the time he was alive, right? That would be the claim, that it's not that they kept up Egyptian all the way from captivity down through David, down through,
Okay. No, not necessarily. And this is something I have to correct Rita Baum on. It's not that he would have known. Again, we get no indication of that. We know that Lehi and his family were educated, and that would have included in the language of the Egyptians. Again, what pending Catholics' whole presupposition is that, like, oh, they would have been Hebrews in Jerusalem. So why would they all of a sudden leave the continent and start writing in this other language? Well, even if they did, which it's unlikely that they did, but even if they did, it's not even the same language, right? And they don't have to speak it. And at the same time, we don't necessarily know what the original records were written in. There's a reason why the Book of Mormon is called the Book of Mormon, because Mormon primarily is the one who abridged it. He was the one who wrote in the Reformed Egyptian, and even he admitted that it would have been far better and a much more perfect record if it was written in the Hebrew.
I love these Protestants getting their Egyptology degrees from the Dunning-Kruger University. Well, and I had to look this up. So if you've ever read Percy Jackson, he actually wrote I don't want to say spin-off series, but it kind of becomes a spin-off connected series called The King, set in Egypt. I looked this up. Ancient hieroglyphics could be written top to bottom, left to right, right to left, and even diagonally.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to verify, like, was that, yeah, and that was, guess what? That was part of why it was such a pain in their neck to translate the Rosetta Stone, because they're trying to figure out, which way does it go? How do we piece this when it was come to the Egyptian? Because there are so many ways you can read it. In fact, I was looking, they're finding things in temples that they're like going, okay, names, go this way. But then they might recite like a prayer, and it's like three lines of hieroglyphs, like three down, like 12 across or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all of a sudden, you look at it, it's like, and there's like the whole prayer in there, and you're like, it's like a 9-paragraph prayer.
Right.
So, I like Dan's comment. He's like, or it was either G or Dan said is like is an easier way to write.
Yeah.
Now opulent, you know, as we it would need to be microscopic with all those words. Well, not if you're writing it in a way that you can go up, down, left, right, top to bottom, diagonal.
Well, and not only that, but like it seems that opulent is working under the assumption that like each character is a single letter in English. Forgetting that the Book of Mormon isn't just Joseph opening up the plates and reading through the interpreters, or if you're a massive twit, the Rock and the Hat, or at least if you believe that you're a massive twit.
Hey,
I regret nothing. But the thing is though is that the Book of Mormon is a translation. You can look at things like Greek and Hebrew and say, okay, this word is this, and this word is an entire phrase. Right? This character is this name. This character is an entire phrase. Like that's the way that things went with this.
well,
It was a
Dan
translation.
Dan McClellan made a great point because this guy was trying to prove the Trinity and the creation of and he took like a word and he was like, "This one, it came from water." Well, look at the Spirit of God, and so it's like this whole like, and Dan's like, "That's not how that works."
That's modalism, Patrick.
Yeah, well, the way Dan was because you'd be like the character for spirit evolved from a hieroglyph that meant water, but he's like, you can't sit and take a word and break each letter and what the hieroglyphic meant. Like that's not how that works. If it was water, it has its own character.
Right.
Just because the character that was used for water 400 years earlier is now a different thing.
Right. Exactly. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, honestly, I would love to keep going here, but like you said, we're like, you've got stuff to do. I honestly do as well, but we have to start making this a regular thing. Friday Night Follies, I think we may want to call it, at least a working title.
Hey, that's better than Friday roast night.
I mean, either or. We'll leave it up to the people. What do you want us to call this show? You know, where we basically, you know, respond to a lot of the comments and the videos and things, or even like we still have yet to actually go through the rest of Mark Driscoll's book.
Well,
so we may do that. Get Tim in on this.
Right. Oh,
yeah.
that means I got to unblock Andrew and Jordan. I got to follow Aaron Garcia so I know when he's live.
Oh, goodness. Anyway.
All right, I'm taking this for the team. I'm taking that brain rot for the team. I better get upgraded to the F-16 for this.
Right. In any case, we'll have some fun. What we want to do, though, we'll leave it up to you guys in order to do that. Of any of the names that we propose, leave comments down in this when this finally gets posted. And we'll have some fun. In the meantime, thanks for coming by, everybody. We'll continue on with this next week. Have a good one.